Be grateful. Be grateful. God has not promised me sunshine. That's not the way it's going to be. But a little rain mixed with God's sunshine, a little pain makes me appreciate the good times. Be grateful. Be grateful. Be grateful. 'Cause there's someone out there wants to be in your shoes. Be grateful. 'Cause there's someone out there wants to be in your shoes. Be grateful, for it will be all right.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Gloria. Wow. You don't want to follow that. So a couple of things. I want to say thank you to Will and Daniel for bringing us all together. This is an awesome idea, but going from an idea to execution is very, very hard. And I just want to say a huge congrats to you guys for pulling all of us together. So thank you for that. With that, I want to go right into it. A week before 9/11, I'm cooking for Richard Grossman at CCAP's annual breakfast at the World Trade Center. A week after 2001, everyone knows what happens, and the city and everybody who's dealt with that, and everybody has sort of been affected by that across the country, but not only across the country, but across the world. But it did impact us as New Yorkers very, very, very differently. That was the starting point for me to start rethinking, how do I think about my being and addressing hospitality, my profession, and even being here. I come from the cushiest country in the world. Like, I came to New York to do something, but I can go back to Sweden tomorrow. I was asking myself that. Why am I dealing with all this stuff? That thought against, what should I do? What's my purpose? And I didn't have the idea of the purpose right away, but I knew I needed to change something that was different than just being busy cooking for only the richest people in the city. Nothing wrong with the richest people in the city. They're creating an enormous platform for all of us, but it had to be something else. And it was a couple of things that my mom said to me. She said, are you sure that bankers have better taste than school teachers? Why do we also have to travel to your experiences? Why don't you open something in the neighborhood where you live? So my mom was talking to me about this, and I lived in Midtown. So I'm kind of like, I am cooking for the people where I live. But it was that. I started to move to Harlem. And I really had this idea. It's like, yeah, if I live there for a year, I can figure this out. I can open a restaurant 2 years later. But boy, was I wrong. The incredible thing when you come to a neighborhood, a village of Harlem, is that you realize that it's off the grid. Harlem is completely off the grid. And inner cities, communities like Harlem is off the grid. And yes, sometimes they lose, but more often we lose. I saw some incredible things in that community that if restaurant means to restore a community, where I felt my role was to open a restaurant that represented a community, being in and of, I couldn't do it in a year. So it took me 7 years from moving in to opening Red Rooster. And in that journey, I found some amazing people. And one of them was Miss Lana Turner. Come over here, Lana. I know in the chef community, it's not that hard to be in the best dressed chef. It's a pretty low entry level. I'm still the worst dressed guy in Harlem, though. Lana, tell me about the outfit. Tell me about your piece.
Outfit, piece, oh my gosh. Everything I do is about a lifestyle. It has less to do with just a hat, or just a dress, or just color, or how you walk. It's all about an entire lifestyle. And that's what I grew up with in Harlem. Watching my parents go to the Savoy Ballroom to dance. They did that before I was born. I see the pictures. To watching the women in church dressing head to toe in maybe all purple with feathers, and loving each other. There was this and there still is. There's still there. There's that competition of, I've got the biggest hat, and I've got the biggest smile. And so it's about color. It's about how you make something out of nothing. And so it is a community in which there are so many things that are made out of nothing that we start thinking about it as soul. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where is Harlem in your mind? Where is it heading today?
Heading. It sounds to me as though it's an answer that starts out with music. I listen to music a lot. So it sounds to me as though we're in the middle of an improvisation. You know, the best of everything. You've got the melody, you've got riffs, you've got ideas, you've got spontaneity. Where is it heading? It's heading in a place in which, very much like the first, Harlem is the second community after New York is established. It is a second community. And in that second community, everyone's been there. There was a Finnish Harlem, which I've just finished reading about. There's a Spanish Harlem. There's Dominican Harlem. But there's so many Harlems. There's an African Harlem. Mm-hmm. There are so many Harlems. It's the nexus. And it's the nexus that I think that continues to explode, expand, and become ever more creative. That, to me, is its place.
Thank you. Right now at the restaurant, we actually have a retrospect of Lana's clothing for the last 40 years at least.
Well, I'm 66, so it's all there.
And in an environment where most people are actually overexposed, the true jewels in Harlem are underexposed. I'm talking about Lana, Dapper Dan, that really reframed. When you think about this moment of hip-hop clothing and style, Dap was the one who invented that. So I'm lucky enough to represent and be part of a community that has underexposed talents that we have an opportunity in the restaurant to show some light on. And that's what was struck me. It's more clear for me today because I see you guys all the time. But when I started this journey in the early 2000s, I was like, how can I represent something the way I never could imagine, because it was actually much better than I thought it was. So the other thing that we thought a lot about communities and places like Harlem, what it has to do with a place like Africa. When you think about Africa, you think about Harlem, there's this constant dialogue about where it was and where it's going, right? You never really talk about the present. You talk about where we came from, the Renaissance, etc., and where it's going. what I wanted to focus was truly through our hospitality was what's going to come out of the Red Rooster is going to be more delicious than what we ever put into the restaurant, whatever we cook. So what's going to come out of Rooster is something that was extremely, extremely important to us. So when we thought about it, it was clear to me that 70% of the staff has to have some connection to Upper Manhattan, the Bronx, or directly in Harlem. The art that we show, the clothing exhibit, the music. So right now, we're in the restaurant, we're about 160 employees. We also are the home for about 70 musicians a week. Between Red Rooster and Street Bird, our sister restaurant, we seat every week about 6,000 people. A third of them makes the reservation old school New York way, right? They call up and say, I want an 8 o'clock reservation, don't you know who I am? A third of them are visitors. They email and they go online, and their third day in New York, maybe they go to Brooklyn, maybe they go to Harlem. So we can sort of manage that representation, that reservation. And the third are locals or Harlemites, and they would never even consider a reservation. So I had to rethink about how we reprogrammed the restaurant. We put way too much money into the restaurant. It was scary as hell that those first days when you kind of saw that the restaurant was packed, but it wasn't packed the way I wanted it to be. And I never wanted to create a restaurant that felt for the local, that this was for them and not for them. And really thinking about that. So the first week, we said, we're going to throw out a third of all the reservations. My partner's like, what do you mean? The restaurant is packed. This is great. We can charge a lot of money. And I was like, no, this is the worst thing that we can do. We have to make sure that the locals feel that this is their restaurant. And we could have never done that without Harlemites like yourself, Lana, that really made it feel not only authentic, but an experience of in and of. When I think about what's going to come out of the Red Rooster, CCAP is very close to my heart. Careers through culinary arts that Richard Grossman started over 20 years ago. With really thinking about how our industry can get more diverse, right? Which I think essentially the core of our industry is very diverse, because the entry level of starting a restaurant or starting something in the food space is still possible. We make it harder and harder in New York with more and more and more expensive rent, but there is possible. I was just talking to Heidi, that comes from the Bronx, that is a CCAP student, and Heidi's ambition is, go ahead. Heidi's ambition is to own her own restaurant one day, and when she talks about the Bronx, I'm completely convinced that the Bronx got next. And if we can all start to look at our inner cities as incredible opportunities, and being off the grid is an incredible opportunity. Sometimes we know more about new emerging markets like Russia and Brazil than we do know about our own inner cities. And as urbanites, as Americans, we have a lot more to benefit from knowing more about the south side of Chicago, to know more about Overtown in Miami, than actually, the emerging market in Russia, right? I was just thinking about the big piece in the New York Times yesterday about the portrait about the south side of Chicago, and how many young, predominantly black men are getting killed And I was just thinking about the restaurant community. If they would have restaurants, lots of them, on the South Side, the way we're very fortunate to have now in Harlem, maybe there would be more opportunities. And I think about local doesn't always have to mean that what ingredient you think about or what's in season. For me, the most local and the most important ingredient is, thank you, Heidi, is people. And the beauty about the restaurant industry is that you cannot outsource the majority of our jobs, right? That is so powerful. So when we hire a busser, a line cook, a food runner, a server, and he or she comes from a couple of blocks away from the restaurant, yes, we're doing a civic duty, but it's also, they're better, right? Because they can also say that once you've been to Red Rooster, you should go to the Studio Museum, you should go to the Apollo, or you can go to Marjorie's Parlor on 160th and Edgecombe, or you will go, if you're lucky enough, invited to one of Lana's beautiful salons that she has in her house that has everything from classical music for kids to even better hat exhibit. So each one of you here is a game changer and a taste maker. I challenge and think about what the uncomfortableness really about what does it mean to be off the grid? And how can being off the grid be an incredible invitation, an opportunity to create an interruptive marketplace that makes the footprint of dining in your community say, hey, this is something different. Out of the 4,000 people that come, and let's say 3,000 that are either New Yorker or visitors. A lot of them are repeat, because we've been there for 5 years now, but a lot of them bring a friend with them that has never been to Harlem. And the core message was to create a sense of normalcy, not just getting up on the tourist bus, take the picture and leave. And when I look at 166 people, and I look at examples like Lana, Dapper Dan, Heidi, and Gloria, I know that I'm very fortunate to be able to travel the world and represent the community of Harlem, the village of Harlem. I could not be doing it without my staff and the vision of people like Lana that was there way before me. But I could also not do it without you guys that have been very, very supportive of this idea of what a restaurant in the 21st century could look like. But it also goes back to the core message, what restaurant mean to restore a community. Thank you very much. Gloria, take it out.
Until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky, until the ocean covers every mountain high, until the dolphin flies and parrots live at sea, until we dream of a life and life becomes a dream. Always, 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 until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky, until the ocean covers every mountain high, until the dolphin flies and parrots live at sea, until we dream of a life and life becomes a dream, until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky, until the ocean covers every mountain high, until the dolphin flies and parrots live at sea, until we dream of a life and life becomes a dream. Hey, until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky, until the ocean covers every mountain high, until the dolphin flies and parrots live at sea, until we dream of a life and life becomes a dream. right.